Alrighty guys, it is Qaaman here today, and in today's video we are going to discuss a problem that the Dragon Ball community has brought up recently in regards to Dragon Ball Super and Black Frieza. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video as we get straight to the problem. So basically, after talking to several of you guys in the comment section below and also talking to several people on Discord, there's kind of like a hidden fear, which I don't think is a huge fear, but something we should definitely discuss in regards to Black Frieza's return. And what a lot of Dragon Ball fans are proposing is that maybe the series is going to go into a direction where we just have a major time skip. Black Frieza basically just came in, killed Gas, killed Elec, went back to running his own empire, our characters went back to living their lives, and that's basically it. Now, the first thing that we should say about this problem is that it would make the Granola arc even worse, because basically it would be doing the exact same thing that happened during the Trunks arc. And granted, I still think that for at least the anime adaptation of Dragon Ball Super, I feel like the Trunks arc was the best arc that Super ever had. Others will argue that it's a Tournament of Power, but as an actual arc, I would say that the Trunks arc was significantly better simply because they'd had a lot more tension, considering the fact that, yeah, we know all our characters have to survive in the end, but at the same time, it was in a different timeline. You know, if you die over there, there's no way to come back. So even though we know our guys have to win, it still had a lot of tension, which is something that Dragon Ball Super really failed to have. So with all of that, I felt it was really good, but the ending to the Future Trunks arc was pretty much a bummer because of the fact that, I mean, our characters basically lost and they just had to have Zeno come in and erase the main guy. And it would have been two major arcs in Dragon Ball where our characters were completely lost, but then some other character that really had nothing to do with the situation just came and just basically bailed our characters out. And I think because of that, it would just make the arc feel very underwhelming, even more so than it already was. You know, and at least in the case with Zeno, I mean, our characters did everything, especially if you look at the manga adaptation. I mean, the manga really got creative when it came to coming up with a bunch of brand new ways to try and stop, you know, Zamasu with Goku using Hakai, and then the fusion, and then him having multiple forms. I mean, there were just so many different things that the manga did to just try and add so many different new things to that arc as a whole. And they really came to the point where they literally just had nothing else they could do. I mean, they were trying to overpower Goku's Super Saiyan Blue form. They did everything, and it came to a point where they just did not have enough to beat him, so they had to call on Zeno. Whereas I think with this, you know, Goku has been working on his Ultra Instinct form, Vegeta learned Ultra Ego, Granola's a part of the fight, you know, and they're all basically fighting against a guy who cheated to have his powers as strong as he is, but the story was set up in a way where our characters would have been able to prevail on their own, and to everyone's shock, Frieza basically just comes in, has nothing to do with, at least we thought, the situation, and just kills Elec and Gas and just calls it a day. So with all of that said, I feel like if this really is it, where Black Frieza is just basically a plot device to just get rid of the situation, and then we just move on to an arc and never see him again, that is probably the biggest blow that Dragon Ball Super has ever had. Now, there is another theory going around that basically Frieza has basically transformed himself into more of a Team Rocket-like character, and I'm pretty sure 99% of you guys are watching this video understand the reference that I'm saying, but for the 1% of you who don't understand what that reference is basically you're kind of just like a side villain that exists, but you're not really a serious threat to like our characters. And this kind of began in Dragon Ball Super Broly, the first time that Frieza really became more of a Team Rocket-esque type villain, where like, yeah, he was a villain and he came to Earth to do what he was doing, but he never really directly posed a threat to the Earth in the sense where like he was aggressively doing like his own actions, you know. So it's one of those situations where it's like, you could kind of look at it, you know, in a situation where you're like, I don't really look at it too much as Frieza being a major villain anymore. He kind of is just out there and he's just kind of terrorizing the universe by, you know, enslaving people and, you know, doing all the very Frieza-like things, but he's not really directly threatening our characters, so our characters don't really care about Frieza. Now, if this is true, that Frieza has really become a Team Rocket type character where, you know, Maki and Oil are basically just new attendants to him, and he's just going to do what he does as a side character, well, that would kind of defeat the purpose of him training for 10 years, and I don't really believe this could be true, because I don't think they would give Frieza a new transformation and have Frieza train that hard to have so little ambitions. So, I don't believe that the Team Rocket good guy theory is true. I don't believe that Dragon Ball Super is going to have this huge time skip and will never continue, but this does bring about a third question that we must answer, and that is the end of Z. Because remember, Dragon Ball Super technically takes place before the end of Dragon Ball Z, so because of this, a question that we all have to answer is, well, does Frieza go back to being dead? Because the way that End of Z ended, I mean, you can say Frieza could theoretically be alive over that 10-year time skip, but obviously Toriyama intended for Z to end with Frieza being dead in the afterlife for very obvious reasons, because we never saw anything about Frieza. Frieza never came back to help out Earth. Frieza never did any of that, so the whole story was originally written with the premise that Frieza ended up being dead, the same way that it was originally written in a way where Goku hadn't seen his family, or I shouldn't say family, but he hadn't seen Bulma for 5 years. Bulma specifically said, I haven't seen you in 5 years. So with all of that said, it leaves us in a situation where, are we gonna go back to the original roots of the writing where Frieza's supposed to be dead? Or, just like retconning that 5-year gap of Goku not seeing Bulma, we have a situation where Frieza somehow came back to life in this time skip, which will now bring up an even better question of, well, if you're gonna do that, you could have just kept Future Trunks around as a main character in the main timeline, because you didn't have to have him go back to the future. If you want to basically just say he just exists, but we just didn't mention him over that 10-year time skip, I mean, fine. You could do something like that, and if we look at Dragon Ball GT, yeah, you can say it's not canon and whatnot, but the thing is that GT was supposed to be a legitimate anime continuation of what the anime of Dragon Ball Z was, so as we saw in Dragon Ball GT, Frieza was in hell with Cell, and that actually wasn't originally intended to rhyme, that just kind of came naturally. It's kind of funny how that worked out, but you get the point. Frieza was originally supposed to be dead, so it leaves the question of whether or not the story is going to tie itself up with, you know, Cell and Frieza being dead once again, or just Frieza specifically, considering the fact that Max Cell died, so Cell's basically died twice. Well, actually, he's actually died more than that if you use alternate timelines, but that's another conversation for another day. It's important that I add this audio in here, because I totally forgot to mention this in the original recording, and this is the character of Granola, who is linked to Frieza. Another reason why I also think that it's very unlikely that we've seen the end of Frieza, or Frieza will be an irrelevant character to the story, is because of Granola himself, because when you factor in that Granola is still alive after the battle, and when you also consider the fact that Granola does have some life left in him, and there's a lot of plot points that still haven't been completed yet, like what happened to 7-3, which, at least from what the original plot looked like it was going to do, he was going to be an integral character. And then there's also Alec, who had apparently made a secret wish that we don't know about yet. So when we factor all of those things in, it could be a situation where Dragon Ball totally forgets about it, but I think the existence of Granola himself, and the mere fact that Granola always wanted to get revenge on Frieza for what he and his empire did to his Cerulean people, goes to show that it would be very in character for Granola to believe that with the little bit of life that he has left, he would go out of his way to try and stop Frieza. But then again, there could also be another situation where they might try to reverse the effects of Granola and give him a longer lifespan and undo the effects of making him so strong in that small amount of time. It's really interesting to see what they do with Granola, but it's definitely important to note that the existence of Granola specifically makes it very clear to the Dragon Ball story that we have not seen the end of Frieza, and that we shouldn't worry too much about this Black Frieza issue of becoming irrelevant. So overall, guys, This is a unique situation that we're in. I don't think that this is going to be a major problem because I think that they wouldn't do all of this with Frieza for him to just come back so briefly. But then again, it's yet to be seen. Until now, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys.